All right, so here we go. All right, so yes, question.
Sir, I can see this here. If you want to remain in the view,
Okay. I come.
Stop.
Stop right here.
if you're on any part of that chalkboard, you'll be seeing. If you go to that side,
Okay.
I just hear a voice and you're not being recorded.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to review first. We're going to review first a little bit of what we learned in the riff, and then what we're going to learn today is we're going to learn the commentary on the riff. We're going to learn the Rabbeinu Yonah. So just quick review. So we saw the riff. He left out the Minahane Mili. So what the riff left out is the Gemara's explanation of how do we know we make a bracha on a miracle. So in halakha, we're not dealing with that. Now we're dealing with the actual, what's the halakha of making the bracha? We know we have to make a bracha. What's the halakha? So we're getting more into just the halakha of the bracha. So the ref leaves that out. So he gives us the first rule from the Gemara. Al nisa derabim mivarchin. A miracle that happened to the whole Jewish people, or the Rabbim, the majority of the Jewish people. And Rabbeinu Yonah is going to comment on that.
But then I used to Rabbim. It's in the Gemara. Where?
It's in the Gemara, right? It's in the Gemara, a couple lines down.
From the beginning.
Yeah. So, but we're here now. We're in the riff and the Rabbeinu. We're going to be here. We're in the riff and the Rabbeinu Yonah. So then he says, so when a miracle happens to the Rabbim, we make a bracha. When a miracle happens just an individual, we don't make a bracha.
Can I just interrupt?
Sure, absolutely.
A minor point. In the Gemara it says Anisa, and in the Rabbeinu Yonah, in the Rif it says Al Nisa.
Okay, so we went over that yesterday.
Okay.
And we have it recorded, so if you want to watch yesterday,
Right.
Sure, I have it loaded up. But so what it seems like what the Rif was doing is he was translating it from the Aramaic of the Gemara into the Lashon HaKodesh. So it was kind of like an art scroll translation for people that know Lashon HaKodesh. But then it's funny, what I showed yesterday is there was one sequence I couldn't remember exactly what the words meant, so we went to the art scroll, we got the English of that, and when we came back to the riff, I was like, the riff just gave us a very clear in Lashon HaKodesh. So it's really an art scroll. What he's doing is an art scroll function for people that know Hebrew, people who know Lashon HaKodesh, and then if we need to take it a step further, we have the art scroll to translate into English. So he's giving the general rule.
He took a lot of license.
Well, this was a commentary. His job was not to recopy the Gemara. What he's really actually doing is explaining the Gemara, but it's subtle because it looks fairly similar. So then he gives the story of like the man who was traveling in the place named Avar Yamina, and some Mefarshim say it's in the south part of Iraq, it's in the south part of the Euphrates. And then he got attacked by a lion. Something miraculous happened. He was saved by the lion. So he goes to Rava. He asks Rava, like the Shaila, like, what do I do? Do I make the bracha? So Rava tells him, every time you go to that place, when you go to that place, you say the bracha of Sha'asa li nes b'makom hazeh, that Hashem made for me a nes in this place. And that's good. So then he further clarifies, so the Rif further clarifies, he says, on a nisa derabim, on a miracle done for the majority of the Jewish people, kule arma sarike lebaruche. Then the whole world, meaning everyone, all the Jewish people, that they are required to say a bracha. But on an anisa de yachid, but now he clarifies, and the Rif's going to add something here, and we're going to have to figure out where he brought this in from. He says, if a miracle happened for one person, then that person, his son and his grandson, then they need to make the bracha, but kuliyama lo sarike. But all the rest of the Jewish people, they're not chiyuv in that bracha. All right, so that's where we were yesterday. Now what we're going to do today is we're going to go into the Rabbeinu Yonah, and the Rabbeinu Yonah he's explaining the Rif. So the Rif was explaining the Gemara, and now the Rabbeinu Yonah is explaining the Rif. Most of the time it's the Ran. Most of the time it's Rabbeinu Nisim, it's the Ran, but here in this Masechta, or at least this parak, it's Rabbeinu Yonah today. And so let's see. So here's an abbreviation. It's just Gimel Mem, but it's Gemara, right? So we got that. We cracked that code. That's an easy one. So that's Gemara. So it's just telling us if it's the Gemara starts here. So it says on a nisa, on a miracle. right, on a miracle, it's a Rabim that happened to the majority, and he's going to tell us a lot more about what Rabim means, which is interesting. What does Rabim mean? Does anybody know what is this? Anybody know what this is? Kaf. Ah, good. Right, so it stands for Kule Alma, which is it literally means the whole world in Aramaic, but it means everyone. It means everyone. So in a halakhic significance, it means like all the Jewish people. And then they need, what do they need to do? They need to make a bracha, make a blessing. Right? They need to make a bracha. Anyone know what this symbol means?
Which? B'chuli?
It means etc. I forgot exactly. It's like the kulo or like all of it, but it's basically it's what we use the word etc. It's etc. So it just means like it's not. What he was doing is he was quoting from the Gemara here. We got a lot of atmosphere. He was quoting from the Gemara, and that means like he's not quoting the whole thing, etc., etc. Look it up in the Gemara if you want to see the rest of it. But he's quoting. All he's doing here is quoting from the Gemara. Kolomar is now, we're going to see Kolomar a lot. We see it in the Gemara, we see it in the Torah. It means like as if to say. So it just means explaining what it means. Like to say, as to say, as to say. But basically, I'm going to give you an explanation now. Here's I quoted the Gemara, and the Kolomar is coming and saying, now I'm going to tell you what it means. I'm going to tell you what it means. Like that when a miracle was done, when a miracle was done for the whole Jewish people, when it was done, and he doesn't say Nisim here, but we know that that's what we're learning right now. When a miracle was done for all. Now, it's very important. He's going off the Lashon that we saw before in the Mishnah. So we go real quick. Someone has, let's see, we have the Mishnah here. So the Mishnah says, Shenasu bo nes li Yisrael. When a miracle was done for Israel. And he's adding a commentary here. I don't know if the Gemara, I have to go back and look at the Gemara. But what a very important commentary he's focusing here is he's focusing on the word lekol. Lekol, so he's adding this word lekol. So what does Rabim mean? Does it mean all? Like it has to be all the Jewish people? Does it have to be 600,000 men of fighting age? Does it have to be just like 2/3 of Jewish people? So we're trying to define right now what this word Rabim means. We have a concept of Rabim and Yachid. So individual, if Hashem does a miracle for one person, that's easy to understand. But halakhic wise, we need to know exactly what Rabim is. How many people does a miracle have to be done for that now everyone is obligated to say the blessing of the miracle? Is it 10 people? Like if Hashem does a miracle for 10 people, then is everyone obligated? Is 100 people? Is everyone obligated? If it's 1,000,000 people? So we really want to understand from a halakhic perspective now, what's Rabim actually mean? So he's adding, so the Rabbeinu Yonah is adding Likol, stressing for all the Jewish people, or now he's asking a question, or does it mean the majority? So what he's trying to do is he's trying to define Rabim. Is Rabim a miracle done for the Rabim, for the masses, for the public? Does it mean all? Does that have to be all the Jewish people? Or is it just the majority of the Jewish people? Right? So when we came out to the Kriyas Yamsuf, that was all the Jewish people. But here's the interesting, what's one example we have that's not all the Jewish people? What's one of the things in our list that's not all the Jewish people?
And
it happened to one person actually. So isn't Lot's wife, right? Lot's wife is on the list, right? If you see the pillar of salt, that was Lot's wife. So that miracle didn't happen to all the Jewish people. It was really just a din, and that's an interesting case too. We have to understand. Why are we making a bracha on it was miraculous. Most people don't turn into a pillar of salt. It It was miraculous. It was midah keneged midah. There's a midrash that says that she was going to the neighbors and she's like, "Oh, I have guests. And it was against the law to like have guests in Sodom. So she was the one that really instigated the crowd to come to the house to get the malachim, the angels that were visiting. But she was going, "Oh, I need some salt. Why do you need salt? Oh, because we have guests. What do you mean you have guests? It's Sodom. You don't have guests there. It's against the law. We don't have hospitality here. So she instigated it. So her punishment, midah keneged midah, according to that midrash, was to turn the pillar of salt. But that's an interesting case because that's not all. But yet that's on our list. That's on our list of everyone's obligated to make the bracha on that one. That's interesting. But right, Kriyas Yamsuf, splitting the Red Sea. That's all of us going into Eretz Yisrael with Yeshua ben Nun, with Joshua. That's all of us when the Jordan River miraculously it doesn't split, but the water starts going straight up in the air, right? So then everyone can cross, behind it. So that's all the Jewish people. So there are certain miracles that have happened to all, but now Rabbeinu Yonah wants to know, is it all? Or is it rov? Is it the rov? Is it all or rov? Okay, now he's going to say, Kigon, and he gives an example of what we just said, of crossing the Jordan River when we came into Israel as a nation. Okay. All right, so that's let's see, let's get a little more Rabbeinu Yonah up there. Any questions?
The bottom part is Rabbeinu Yonah?
This is all Rabbeinu Yonah. This is Rabbeinu Yonah.
This is all Rabbeinu Yonah?
Yes, I'll show you.
It's not Gemara.
Well, it's on the ref. So it's right here. We're doing this one right here. So it's this Rabbeinu Yonah right here. Okay, so let me put the next part of the Rabbeinu Yonah up there. Okay, so that's Kigon Ma'avros Yordi. And then he says, V'kol Osan, V'kol Osan Shemifarish B'Baraisa and our friend Kuli Ama is back again as Roshei Tevos. And then it's Sariche, Livorche, or Livruche, to bless. And then he's going to say, She'asa, Nisim, Lavosenu, Bimakom, how's that? All right, so one thing to note, what the Rabbeinu's doing, if we have to say what's his main focus here is, the Rif told us the rules. If it's a miracle done for all the Jewish people or the majority of the Jewish people, everyone makes a bracha. And if it's done for one person, just that person's son and that person's grandson make the bracha. What the Rabbeinu Yonah is coming to do is the Rif told us the rules. The Rabbeinu Yonah, and this Rabbeinu Yonah, he's just clarifying exactly what bracha each person makes. That's it. It's coming to clarify just the bracha, the halakha of just what the bracha is. All right, so let's go through this. So then end all, of this, meaning all this subject from the Rif, all of this that was explained, that is explained in the Baraisa, right, in the Baraisa. And then our favorite word, who's got it? Everyone's got it? So we're gonna see this one a lot. Kule Alma. Now why they start doing this is, I don't know if to save ink or just to make everything shorter, but what it is I think after you're going over the Gemara again and again and again, the Gemara says Kule Alma, the Rif says Kule Alma, everyone keeps saying Kule Alma, and then we start then eventually abbreviating. So it's Kule Alma, it means everyone. So everyone needs Now, what we haven't gotten to yet that we're going to look out for, what does everyone mean? Everyone? Is it men, women, children? Is everyone chayiv in the bracha? Right? Halakhically now, is it everyone? Is it also nashim? Is it avadim? So that's going to get clarified as we go further into the halakha. But we need to know then everyone. Is everyone everyone? So everyone needs to make a bracha. And then he's going to give us the exact bracha. And he's giving us the exact bracha that we've seen before that makes miracles for our fathers. So he's using this nusach. This is the form of the bracha that made miracles. So it's Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam she'asa nisim, that made miracles for our fathers in this place. Right, and that's the form of the bracha. That is the form of the bracha. Okay, so that was the first part of the riff, and what Rabbeinu came to just clarify is, halakhically, this is the exact bracha you make. We've seen it before. We've seen it in the Gemara. He's just clarifying it, but he's going to clarify the second part, which we haven't seen yet, that the riff brings, because the riff brings a new idea. The riff brings a new idea that if it's an individual, it's only the individual, his son and his grandson make the bracha. And then what bracha do they make? They're not going to say Avoseinu, so we're going to have to see what bracha they make. Okay. Any questions on this stage that we're at so far? What's happening? Where are we?
So if a miracle happened to a group of Jews that don't happen to be our ancestors, we would still say Avoseinu.
So who would that be? Like, give me an example.
Like, let's say a miracle was done for a bunch of Ashkenazim with the Sephardim. Then
Okay. So that's interesting. So what we have to really define. So in order for us to paskin the halakha, what we would really have to define, we have to understand really what Rabbi means. How many people do we need for Rabbi? We would understand one, Yachid's easy, but as we move further and further in this halakha, we're going to have to clarify this, and then he's asking the first question. So the Rabbeinu Yonah is now asking the question, does it mean kol, all the Jewish people, or does it mean a rubam, a rov? Like just a majority, and then what's a majority? 10 enough, 100 enough, 1,000,000 enough, 2/3, what do we need? 600,000, what do we need? That's obligating everyone. Like, how many people is it? So he goes on, and he's giving an example of this, and he's saying, so does it need to be only the cases, like the cases we've seen in the Brisa in the Gemara? It's only like Kriyas Yam, the splitting of the Red Sea, that big an event, where the whole Jewish people experience it? Is it only that big? Or is it enough if like 100,000 people had a miracle for them? What we're going to get into, like, what if it's one tribe? Do all the rest of the tribes have to make the bracha, or just that one tribe? So everyone's going to start breaking this down more and more, because we need the practical halakha l'maisa. We need to get it down from the Mishnah, from the Gemara, into practical halakha l'maisa that we can use. So we got to get it. Hold of it. Like, so can I erase this? Does everybody have this? Do you still have your sheet on the ref? Good. Okay. Great. Okay. Right. So if you go through the sheet, right, then you can just, if you want to even write on top of the Rabbeinu Yonah there, the riff there, then you have the clarified sheet. Or you can write, if you have a Gemara that has it in the back, go through. You can go through the Gemara. Do we need more time, or I'll give you guys a couple more minutes. I'm not sure, is this a good pace that we're going through right now? Okay, everyone understands what we're doing so far. Good, okay. So the plan today is we'll try to go through the whole Rabbeinu Yonah, and then we'll see. Maybe if we have some time, we may even start the Rosh. I don't know. We'll see how long it takes to finish up the Rabbeinu Yonah, but we could start possibly the Rosh today. And then we got Rambam next week. We got Rambam coming next week, and then we hit the Torah, Shulchan Aruch, maybe a little Mishnah Brewer. Maybe I can dig up a modern post game. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
What's that part to the
Which
bottom? That's the bottom.
Which one here?
Yeah.
This right here?
No, below that.
This?
Yeah, what's that?
La'avosena.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
To our fathers, yeah, to our, because a miracle was done for our fathers. Okay, okay. But you should have, this should all be, you have it all right here. This is all right here. So just,
Okay.
okay, it's right there. Okay, can I go to the next part, or?
Just the same understand
Yeah.
Hakum hello.
So, b'makom
B'makom.
hazeh. It's right, if we remember back from the Mishnah is the roeh. The person sees the place, he sees the makom, he sees the place where the miracle was done for the Jewish people. Right, let me go with it. So the Lashon, the language of the Mishnah itself is haroeh makom. The person sees the place. Shena'aso bo nisim liyisrael. The Mishnah is very simple. Just person sees the place that a miracle was done for the Jewish people. Just li Yisrael. But just out of the word li Yisrael in the Mishnah, we have to define what does it mean for Yisrael. Kol Yisrael? That's what the Rabbeinu Yonah is asking. Kol Yisrael? Or just Rov of Yisrael? You know, what does li Yisrael mean? I'm sorry, let me just see if it's an emergency type thing. Okay, it should be okay. Okay, so good to erase, not good yet.
So when somebody is
Yeah,
learning the riff,
yeah.
I mean, how long does it take him to do a whole page of the riff and the Ron, or the riff and the Rabbeinu Yonah? Does it get?
You can learn it. You can learn it.
Practice.
You can learn it different ways. It may be practical just to learn it through, like, well, how we're learning it through is we're just taking one halakha, first halakha in the Mishnah, learning through there. Maybe someone learns through, maybe learn a page of it. You know, I think usually, you know, you go through the Mishnah, go through the Gemara, then go through the Rif, go through the Rush, go through Rambam, then it's a short Shulchan Aruch. And people do, and I'm telling you, that's very streamlined. Like, this was my methodology when I was in Eretz Yisrael, but that's very streamlined, because then you get into the real Be'in, you know, where they'll spend weeks, months, you know, like when, and they'll go into expansive amount of Rishonim, expansive amount of, you know, Acharonim, and of course, like yeshiva must is you got to learn Rabbi Akiva Eger. You know, you got to learn Rabbi Akiva Eger is like a staple yeshiva.
In this yeshiva,
Yeah.
this kollel, we are like learning a Masechet in a year.
Yeah, so it's more like Bekias, you want to see, right, than the Be'in, right? So this is nice, so you get a little taste of Be'in here, so you get a little.
We can spend the rest of our life on this.
So you can go, yeah, I mean, that's the Chofetz Hayim, like the Yeshiva Chofetz Hayim, and they were famous for they would be on a daf all year, maybe, like a couple daf, but you can see, you can get really, really deep into one daf, one amud. It's like, I mean, we're talking about a 4,000 year conversation, you know, and there's so much. I mean, you can get into like Gaoni, Savarayim. You can get into like, you know, early Rishonim, later Rishonim, early Acharonim, later Acharonim, Manar Poskim. I mean, it's extensive, and then there's all kinds of special Sefarim written on certain Masechtas. So, like for instance, like one famous, like, you know, I'm a little familiar with, like Tavu Shor on Chulin with just, you know, the Indian of Shechita, just shechting, you know, a kosher animal. And people write extensive, like, Svarim, and then, you know, talk about Shabbos, like, you start getting the halakhas of Shabbos, it's just vast, who's written Svarim on that. So, yeah, you can spend, I mean, it's, anyone is saying, like, you know, I'm bored learning Torah, I don't have anything Torah to learn, you're not learning Torah, you know, you just, Okay, we'll go on to the next part. Okay, so this is the first part. So this was the first part in the riff of if it happens to the Ravim. And now Rabbeinu Yonah is going to go into the second part. Okay, what happens if it happens to Yaakov? What happens if it happened to Yaakov?
Did he come to a conclusion of what the Ravim was?
So I don't know if we have it yet. I think what he's doing is not, I wouldn't call it specifically Pesach Halakha. I think he's starting to ask questions, and he's helping us learn this sugya, and he's telling us what questions we should be asking, but I don't think he's giving us a definitive answer And that's why we don't generally, like, we're not going like, oh, what's the halakha? I'll look it up in Rabbeinu Yonah here. That's why Rabbi Yosef Karo, when he has the methodology of using Rif, Rosh, and Rambam, he wants to get to a definitive answer and say, here's the halakha. So I don't think off of this. I think we could. I mean, I think you maybe could rely off the Rabbeinu Yonah here if you want to make that bracha. But we don't. What we don't have is we don't have clear knowledge yet of what Rabim is. Not yet. I don't think we really understand.
You're gonna get that from.
I don't think yet. I don't think. I think when we get to Torah Shulchan Aruch, we're going to get more definitive. But I don't think yet. I think he's teaching us how to ask the question, teaching us how to think halakhically. What does Rabbi mean? What does Yisrael mean? What does this word mean? What does that word mean? So he's teaching us how to think. To get the halakha. Okay, so then he says, and then he goes on, he says this. He says, the key. I think this is a Haki Garcinan. Haki Garcinan, Mayri, and then here's an abbreviation again for, I'd like to see what this is the abbreviation for. Anyone know that one? That's the abbreviation. Okay, and then Masnisi, our Mishnah. So we'll go back through that. But that's important. What does that mean? So then he's going to quote the Mishnah. Okay, Anisa de Yachid. Okay. And then it's who? Ubere. And then it's Ubere. Ubarbere. And then this is an interesting one. Then he says this. He says Bilachud. Okay, so we'll break down this little part right here. So this is interesting. All right, so let's see what he's saying here. And he's saying u and bi and with ki, and ki is one of the more fascinating words in Lashon HaKodesh, because Rashi, the famous Rashi, on the word ki, it can mean 5 things. Some of the things it can be because, it can mean when, it can mean if, it can mean 2 other things, which I'm not remembering right now. But ki can mean many things. So vav is and with when, or and. So I'm just going to say and if. I'm just going to say and if just to make it easy right now. So this is Hachi Garcina. And this we're going to see a lot. And this is perfect. This is very important to understand a little bit. Hachi Gar. How do you spell that? I think it's a Samic, right? Garcinan. Okay, anybody know what that means? Hachi Garcina.
This is how we interpret it?
So Garcina, it means this version.
This version.
And we'll talk about this a little bit. So it means this version. So we're going to see this a lot.
Yeah.
And this is a weird thing that we find in Gemara. This is a weird thing. We talked about this a little before, a couple days ago, I think. So when we're talking about a Sefer Torah, there's really specific halakha. Like, you can't change a letter. If it's missing a little, bit of the ink, and splitting the letter, or if it's too much ink, every letter has to be perfect, or the Sefer Torah, it's puzzle, it can't be used. But Mishnah, this is where it gets really weird. Mishnah and Gemara, we call it the Torah Sheba'al Peh, but it's not quite the Torah Sheba'al Peh, because Torah Sheba'al Peh has to be spoken. That's it. That's the way, like Hashem, created it, and that's the way we're supposed to use it. We tell, you learn it from the Rebbe, and you tell it, and then you teach it to the next person. So the Mishnah and Gemara, it's like they're like memory devices to help us remember it. And then unfortunately, the real chain of Torah Shabbat Peh was broken. But they're memory devices, and they were, we talked about before, like, you know, on Pesach, that it's the notes, like Rebbe Yehuda Nasi took everyone's notes to put together the Mishnah, and then the Amoraim came together to explain the Mishnah better, but it's really everyone's notes, and it's not really the Torah Shabbat Peh. And since it's not like this, we didn't receive this from Hashem, you know, Baal Peh on you know, from Sinai, that sometimes there's different versions. There's different Rebbeim's notes, there's different rabbis' notes. Sometimes they wrote things different ways. So sometimes they didn't match up. Also, before the printing press, people would copy the Mishnah and the Gemara, and then you would take home your copy to wherever. So someone was a rabbinical student, they would make a copy of the Mishnah, and they would make a copy, hopefully, of the whole Gemara, and they would take it back, and they would take it back to whatever city, like they were going to be the rabbi of. And so they had their copy, and then they, you know, you could teach it to the people who live in their city. So sometimes different schools, different yeshivas may have had slightly different versions of things. So there's these Haki Garcinons, there's this version, but now we live in this great age of information. We have all the versions. So now we can see this version and we can compare it to another version, and it's like, and we're trying to, you know, what's, you know, in yeshiva we're like tight up. We're trying to just get clarification of exactly, you know, which is teaching us, you know, the clearer version.
Sir,
Yeah.
what common era time was the first version of Mishnah Gemara written down and printed? Actually printed.
Oh, printed? That I would have to look up a little more. I can't remember. Do you remember the year of the printing press? I can't remember.
1462 or something.
1462.
I mean, around that time.
I do remember hearing like one of the first things printed was actually the Torah of Rashi. Like that was one of the very first things put on the printing
That's
press.
because mostly only Jews could read, so that.
Yeah, like it helped that we like
Right.
like the bit you had to go where the business was. And
Right.
the business is the people that actually want the books
Right.
and can read.
Can I
And
ask you, do you mean when was Gemara written and disseminated?
No.
Because it was written by hand for hundreds of
No,
years.
the first
before
time that it was actually in a print, like someone said, we're gonna take it to the book guy,
Yeah.
and they're gonna set up the type and print it.
It was, I think it was in the 1500s, early 1500s already.
Okay.
like so. Anyway, so then so that's a good point. It's a great point because then once you're going to print it, now you kind of want to lock it down.
Right.
So everyone kind of agrees if we're going to print it, we want to, you know, we kind of want to print it what we think's the right way. Okay, so this word we're going to see a lot. Mas Nisi. What does it mean? What's Mas Nisi mean?
Our Mishnah.
Our Mishnah. So it's really important because what's going to happen all the time in the Gemara is we're learning, what are we learning? We're learning our Mishnah, right? We're learning our Mishnah, right? We're learning the Mishnah we're learning right now. And the Mishnah that we're learning right now starts Haroeh Makom Shanasa Bo Nisim LeYisrael. That's what we're learning right now. But sometimes we're going to contrast it a lot of times in the Gemara. They're going to contrast it to understand the halakha because they're going to say, our Mishnah says this. But it's weird because it's a kasha, it's a stira. It seems to contradict what it's saying in a different Mishnah, in a different Masechta. In a different Gemara, it seems to say something different. So there's a concept of our Mishnah and another Mishnah, and we can contrast it with another Mishnah. There's also a concept of our Shas and their Shas. So if we're learning Bavli, they're going to refer to the Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, as our Shas, our Talmud. And then they're going to contrast it with theirs. You know, they're going to contrast it with the Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem, you know, Talmud, and vice versa. When you're learning, you know, when they're teaching the Jerusalem Talmud, they're going to call it ours. They're going to call it our Talmud, and they're going to contrast it with their Talmud. You know, so you see it's a lot Hasam, you know, Haka here and there, you know, there and here, you know. Okay, so Mas Nisin, we're going to see it a lot. Our Mishnah. So, but. On a miracle, so A is on in Aramaic, on a miracle of one person, individual. I don't know why I can't spell his word anymore. Individual. I hope that's it. Okay, individual. So then the person. So he his son, and his grandson. And his grandson. And I think lichud means like with them specifically. I think that's what he's saying there. So I think he's saying with them specifically and not anyone else. Now I believe the first time we saw this concept of who ubarbare, him, his son, and his grand, I believe that the first time we see it is the Rif. I believe the Rif brought it in. Because we didn't see it in the Gemara, I don't think. Unless it's farther in the Gemara, I have to double check. But I think the Rif brought it in. But I have to go through the sugi a little better just to clarify that. I don't want to say that 100%, but it seems like the Rif was the first one that brought that in, that concept. All right, and that's just the Rabbeinu Yonah. So the Rabbeinu Yonah is now going to introduce this topic, and now what we're going to get to is, okay, well, what exactly does he say? What does his son say? And what does the grandson say? So we need to know what bracha that they make, because if someone's in this situation, they need to know what to do. All right, so let me see how we're doing. So let's take a break here, and then we'll come back and we'll start doing the rest. All right, so we'll learn the rest of the Rabbeinu Yonah here. All right, so what he's going to do, this is fairly straightforward, but we'll go through it. But what he's basically going to tell us is he's going to tell us what bracha to make. So he's going on this section in the Rif. He's going on Sariche Livroche, like they need to make a bracha. So this is like if the miracle happens. He's quoting the Rif. If the miracle happens for one person, and the Rif saying who ubare. Ubarbare belichud, and just them specifically, they make the bracha, but no one else makes the bracha. So now the Rabbeinu Yonah is going to go on, well, okay, exactly what bracha do they make? So he's going to say, Sariche livruche, they need to make a bracha, they need to bless. So the guy himself, so this is the guy the miracle happened for. So this is a man like the miracle happened for, that guy, who miracle happened for him. What actual bracha does he make? What actual bracha does that guy, the individual that the miracle happened for him? So it's interesting. So it says Sha'asali. So it's going to be Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. He's going to say instead of Lavosenu, it's just going to the Rabbeinu Yonah letting us know that the nusach of the blessing is going to change. He's going to say Sha'asali, that Hashem made for me a miracle. So it's going to be the same thing. Hashem made a miracle for me in this place. But instead of like now saying Avosenu, he's saying Li. He said Hashem made a miracle for me. Okay, good. And then he's going to go on, okay, so what to then his son, or what's his son, and what's his grandson? What bracha are they going to make? They're not going to make the bracha of Sha'asa Li. Hashem didn't really make the miracle for them personally, but they're going to make this bracha. They're going to say Sha'asa Nes La'avosai. They're going to say Hashem made a miracle for my father. For my father. And we've seen in the Torah, there is a concept of like a son or a grandson can call, the father, the grandfather, father. You can call the son or a grandson son. So we do see that a couple times in Torah. One of the famous being that, like Abraham calls Sarah Imenu, he calls Sarah his sister. So it's like, well, how can Abraham do that? How can Abraham do that? Because we have this concept of like Devar Sheker Tirchot. Like you're supposed to separate yourself from any lies. You're supposed to speak truthfully. So there is also a concept that with a Russia, like we see with Yaakov, we see with Jacob that when you're dealing with someone like Lavan, that trickster, a con artist, you can kind of deal with them, on their own level. But the higher level is that you really shouldn't say anything that's not true. So even though Abraham was trying to save Sarah's life and save his life because he thought that they would kill him and take Sarah. He was speaking because you can speak about people as like your grandfather can be like your father, and so then if she's really the granddaughter of his. I forgot the whole thing. But it's but instead of referring to it as the grandfather, he's referring to it as the father, and it makes them like brother and sister, instead of like the cousins or she's the aunt. I forgot the relationship, but so there is a concept of referring to a son or a grandson as a son, and a father or grandfather as a father. Okay, that's all complicated. Sorry. But the actual, it's a very simple concept that so the son, miracle happened for his dad, or the grandson, miracle happened for his grandfather. They're just going to make the bracha, Berachot Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, she'asa nes, he made a miracle for my father. V'avosai b'makom hazeh, in this place. Okay, good. Now, let's see. So that's the bracha. Now let's see what he does next. What's the Rabbeinu Yonah going to do next? So he's going to say, and all the miracles, so every miracle, every nes, every miracle that is not made or not done, that is not done for all of Yisrael, for all the Jewish people, right? Anything not done for all the Jewish people, or for a majority of the Jewish people, that is called of a yachid, of an individual. Like, this is really big. This is a really big concept in halakha now, because this is the question we were asking before, and the Rabbeinu Yonah is giving us an answer to this question. This is really important. What if a miracle happened for 100 people? What if Hashem did a miracle for 100 people? Let's say there's a tour group in Israel, and we talked about it before. Let's say a missile's coming in from Lebanon, from Hezbollah. They shot a missile at this tour group. Let's say there's 100 people in the tour group. All of a sudden, the missile stops in the middle of the air. Iron Dome didn't pick it up. A flock of birds come. They start lifting up the missile. They take the missile out of the Mediterranean. It drops in the water. No one gets hurt. A miracle was done for 100 people. So that, according to the Rabbeinu Yonah, that's not for all the Jewish people. That's not for the majority of the Jewish people. That's for 100 people in that tour group. But those 100 people on that tour group, they make the bracha. This is very interesting. They make the bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, she'asa li, she'asa li nes b'makom hazeh. They make a bracha in the place where they were miraculously saved from the missile. And every time, past 30 days, they come back to that place, they always make the bracha. And then, every one of those 100 people in the tour group, their son and their grandson will also make that bracha. That she'asa li nes lavosai. Now here's the question.
Even though they were not there.
Even though they weren't there. Because what the Rabbeinu Yonah is saying is, if it's not the majority of the Jewish people, or it's not even a rove, it's not all or a rove, the majority, then it's treated like a yachid. Then it's the same halakha as if it just happened for one person. So 100 people in the tour group, treated like a yachid. Just those people it happened for, their sons, and their grandsons. Now what haven't we seen yet? We haven't seen daughters. We haven't seen wives. There seems to be maybe an implication that it's only applying to the men. But we'll have to clarify. If it happens to a woman, does she have to make a bracha or not? We'll have to clarify that at some point.
Back to Yosef Karo then.
At some point, we're going to need to clarify, what if a miracle happens to a woman, does she make a bracha? Does the daughter make a bracha? Does the granddaughter make a bracha? We're going to have to clarify. So far, the language has only been that men make this bracha. But we've only seen maisin that happen to men. So we got to clarify, because for halakha l'maisa, we're going to have to clarify at some point, who does it apply to? Does it apply to only the men, or does it apply to the women too? Okay, so we got to see who it applies to. So then he says, so this is a big concept now. So the Rabbeinu Yonah, this is a very big concept. If it didn't happen to all all the Jewish people, if the miracle didn't happen to all the Jewish people, or didn't happen to the majority of the Jewish people, it's treated like the halakha of the Yaki.
Let me try this one.
Okay.
X number of missiles
Okay.
were sent in from Saddam Hussein into
Yeah.
Israel.
Yeah.
Didn't kill anybody.
Didn't kill anyone.
Less?
I think it is an ace, but here's the
Yachid or
here's the thing. But maybe it's I think the nace has to be revealed. It can't be nister. It can't be hidden in the natural world. So truthfully, we talked about this before. Truthfully, when the Iron Dome goes and intercepts like 99.9%.
I don't think there were any Iron Domes then.
Right.
That just
They would just the Scud missiles from Iraq.
Scud
They
missile.
would fall like in an empty field,
right.
or they wouldn't explode.
And then, like you say, they hit the Americans and they
So
killed the Americans.
right, so I don't think it's a revealed miracle, but I think that's a different halakha. But I think someone could bench Gomel. I think you could go into shul and you could bench Gomel because you were in a dangerous situation that you were saved from.
I see.
Because we talked about this before, and maybe that would be interesting if we had time to look up Gomel versus a nace.
Versus that.
What's the qualification for Gomel? What's the qualification for nace? But it seems like it has to be something more revealed. It has to be something where it's like, oh, this is not the natural way of the world. Like something happened here.
That's not the natural way of the world.
In a sense, what's happening with Iron Dome is not natural. There's technology and it's good technology, but the intercept rates are so probably crazy high of how they're intercepting all these missiles. And I think when we start seeing defense systems in other countries, they may not function at those astoundingly high rates of interception. Because there's a lot can go wrong in the calculations of trying to, calculate the trajectory of the missile and the wind currents, and then all kinds of things can happen to throw everything off. You could have clouds, you could have this, you could have that, you could have some dust blowing. You never know what could mess up the calculation. So the fact that all those missiles are intercepted is probably a great miracle, but it's hidden. So I don't think we're making brachos on hidden miracles. I think a hidden miracle is probably going to be a Gomel.
So, sir, from my perspective, if that individual is saved, whether by someone grabbing it from the sky or it's a bird or whatever the heck it is, you got saved.
Yeah.
That's the outcome.
Yeah.
Bottom line up front is you're alive and
Yeah.
you're not out.
Yeah.
So that's the prevailing, because it was such an extraordinary, whichever way it appeared to you,
Yeah.
whether our small minds can figure it's big or it's not.
Yeah.
I don't think, from my perspective, that would not be the question. It is, you were safe from death,
Yeah.
and that's enough.
Yeah, I think I think someone's obligated in some kind of
Right.
thanks to Hashem. But the question then becomes: is it on a level of Gomel, or is it the bracha for nace? So it could just be Gomel. It could just be the Iron Dome. That was coming right to your house, and the Iron Dome sent up a rocket to intercept it, a missile to intercept it. Probably the next day in shul, you bench your Gomel. You give some kind of praise, or give some generous, tzedakah, something.
I see that difference.
Just something to thank Hashem. It's because all this really is. We're dealing with like Karsatov here. We're doing a Karsatov praising Hashem. It's like Shavas. They call it Shavas here and Hodah. It's two Indians in this. It's praising Hashem for His actions and thanking Him, and that's like the two main things we're doing with all this section of the brachas. And if we get into the other sections, like with the lightning, with the thunder, yeah. Okay, so then it says we make a bracha, we make a blessing, we make a bracha on it. Only. So this is an Eino Ella, sorry. So when we have you guys are familiar with the Eino Ella? Ein Ella. It's the language in Lashon Kodesh. It's when we have Ein Ella, so it's like not but, we translate it as only. So because it's an Ein Ella, we only make a bracha on it. So him, like he, his son, and his grandson. So I think that's talking about only them. So I think it's talking about like what we were talking about. I think that's talking about like our Torah group. So if our 100 people Torah group, like what he's saying is if our 100 people Torah group are saved, then each one that was saved, they make the bracha she'asalines, and then the people on the Torah group, their sons and their grandsons, they make the bracha, she'asalines avosan. Okay, so that's the Rabbeinu up to there. And let me pause this right here. Okay, so we got another half hour. You guys want to start on the Rosh? Or what do you think? Or do you want to go?